We don't
Yo,
have
So
to
I'm
I'm
told
not-
that Fred
not a fan of
Rogers.
him. I'm not a fan
I'm
of
told.
his.
I'm told that Fred Rogers is requesting Kevin if you can help me get him up here. Tupa says that he's very knowledgeable on the subject. Continue, guys. I'm sorry.
Look.
That's a mute glitch.
Yo, that was like Ben Affleck
Fred
and
Rogers,
J-Lo.
Mr. Rogers.
That was like that Ben
It is
Affleck
Mr.
and
Rogers,
J-Lo
that's
movie,
awesome.
man.
Is that little pussy crass?
Hey, remember that we have a daytime space, so watch the language.
Approved.
Is human tampon a
Is Fred speaking? Or what's
Sorry.
going on?
No, I think I broke the internet when I said that word. I'm not going to say bad words, but really, I was rugged by Krasenstein in 2001 through his Talk Gold high yield investment hype when he owned the Moneymaker forum before he was arrested by Homeland Security. I don't trust anything that comes out of that fool's mouth.
We concur. He's a
No one
fan.
else does either.
Okay. Thank you for that, Tupa. This is not exactly what
I thought he was giving us like some Epstein updates.
I did too.
I didn't think we were bringing somebody up to like go. You're all right.
George Orwell just started following me. Okay, this is interesting.
Well, that would be interesting, wouldn't it? I did get a follow from Yuri Bezmenov the other day. I was like, that was
James. What do you think about all of this, man? People aren't happy about how this rolled out. Do you agree?
No. Did I miss something? So my take on this thing is that, look, first of all, I kind of got to believe that they're going to prosecute some people, first off. So some of that's going to be held back. We'll see what happens or what doesn't happen. I don't really give a shit, to be honest with you. Like, I'm all about the public disclosure. But at the end of the day, I mean, I'm also looking at the maneuvers. Like, I understand how this stuff used to work, normally works. When you're going to shortcut your own press department, you're going to go direct in some fashion, usually through the press office. We've all had a problem with that for decades, right? That the mainstream media has been a filter that's filtering out all of our information. We've been saying things like, we are the new media. Diligent, Kevin, Chad, everybody on this stage has been part of that new media process. So now they finally put new media right at the front of the line. I mean, our very own Scott Presler was at the White House and got the same briefing book that they normally give to mainstream media. So why would you have a problem with that? I mean, it's like our boys are in the White House. Like, you got to say, hey, good job. They're at least making a step in the right direction. And they've chosen a strategy of they're going to release this thing in tranches for some reason. The only logical reason, besides the fact that the Southern District of New York just completely hid 2,000 pages of evidence, besides that, putting that aside, there has to be some reason they're following that strategy. And in my mind, since it's being run through the DOJ, it has something to do with potential prosecutions.
Yeah. There's one thing that's incredibly apparent is that we have a literal insurrection happening within the federal government. All of these years that they've been saying that the J6ers were the ones guilty and the Trump Republicans and MAGA were guilty of insurrection. We're literally seeing an insurrection take place right now where the bureaucrats are acting against the will of the people and the will of the government openly and defiantly. And technically, if they're in the FBI or the DOJ, they are armed. So it does actually qualify as an insurrection. Just my opinion.
Could they raid the FBI field office in New York?
They could.
They could.
By the way, when you were talking about who was following you, I just got followed by the actress who played Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So I don't know if I should be worried about that or not.
Wait, Sarah Michelle Gellar followed you?
No, the woman who played
That's
it in the
not
movie.
her, bro. Come on, man. Really? I don't even.
Well, you said George Orwell. I was just
It's
saying
a parody.
It well,
I'm joking, but you're serious. That's the difference. Right?
Well, I didn't know if it was a George Orwell parody account. Obviously, I didn't think it was
George
Orwell.
Orwell is dead, dude.
I know that. That's why I said parody account.
And like he's very dead. Like he's very like he's not like Gene Hackman dead. He's very dead.
He's mummified.
Has anybody
What
checked
if
in on Tom Hanks, by the
Gene
way?
Hackman offed himself last night because he was afraid that his name might appear on the list?
You know what? I'm gonna roll the dice and say he's probably not on there. But that's just because
He's been dead for too long. He was married to the same woman for 30 years.
I just really like his movies, so I'm gonna say that he's not on there.
So was Bill Clinton.
Well, that was a little different. That was more of a political deal.
So Scott, can we check in with you? I realize you've probably been sitting there poring over the documents that you have in your hand. How is that going, sir? Anything new, or do you know when the press conference is going to be, if you're available to speak? He might not be able to get to his phone.
Since Scott is not answering diligent, there's one thing I'd be happy to say from having watched that stream with the binder that I just thrilled to say here to tweak some folks is Netanyahu is not on the list. So I know there's people that want to say, but you can't say it about the list. At least the information was released.
Bro, we went like
today.
We went like an hour and a half.
Penny, can you accept the co-host?
We went like an hour and a half without somebody.
Well, actually, I think it's important to confirm that it's that, but I actually think it's good to confirm that he's not, because there's probably people wondering that.
Well, I went an hour and a half without hearing Israel. Like it was a record for the last year and a half. Like, damn it, bro.
Yeah, I'm about to let Myron on stage, so that's going to change. Tupa, can you accept co-host? Jeez, man. No, thank you, sir. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, let's let Myron up here so he can say Israel a bunch of times. Go ahead, Myron.
Myron, you are up.
Shalom.
Okay. Myron, what do you think about this drop, man? Are you disappointed?
Well, it's what I anticipated. I came earlier this morning when I covered this, and basically they gave some of the flight manifest stuff. But I tweeted earlier. I said, if you're not going to talk about Les Wexner, there's no real point to talk about Epstein. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't pay attention to.
I will agree with that on Les Wexner. He is definitely somebody who needs to be talked about a lot too. And there's also it starts with a J. I forget the other name. There was another individual who wasn't mentioned, but I don't have the list yet. Like, have you seen the release, like a list of the names, like in its entirety, Myron, from today?
Yeah, I've seen. The list that was given today.
Yeah.
No, not today. I haven't seen what was given today. I know that they were going to release some flight manifest stuff, which is ambiguous at best, but nothing that's official as far as the list goes. And another thing to note is that the list that they released, Epstein had multiple pilots, and each of those pilots had different manifests and different lists. So we're not even getting all of the ones, and then that doesn't account for helicopters and the people that drove to the home to meet the the underage individuals as well.
Yeah, Ghislaine had a helicopter that she specifically stated was for flying people around under the radar. So that's a good point. Jack, you got some screenshots of names and information from the flight logs. You want to share them with us?
They're all on my timeline. I just posted all of them.
Bro, you're gonna come up as a speaker. I'm asking you to say them, and you're like, just look at my profile. All right. So, is there anybody on stage who wants to speak?
Don't forget that there was a submarine base.
Like, what the hell? Destiny, you go for it.
Her submarine license.
Destiny, you're up.
Okay. I broke down some insights. I'm about to make a post on it, but I'll just tell you now. According to Liz Wheeler's copy of the binder, what I could discern from the binder is it's going to come out in at least 6 different phases. How I know that? They're alphabetically ordered in release. The first release was only A through D. Since there's 26 letters in the alphabet, that's 6.5 times the amount if they go in the same correct amount of order. So roughly 6 future ones upcoming. This is number 1, A through D. This one only included A through D. The binder ends on D. So that's first and foremost. Second, there are names that were I know, right? There were some discernible names that I could make out. Some of them do not have last names, but you have William and Karina Casey, Camila Karabom, Karining, which does not have a first name, Barbara Carrera, Guido Casanestra, sorry, Simon Case, Gregory and Paulina Case, Mark Cecil, Albie and Victoria Cater, Debbie Castaneda, Michael and Charlena Carlillo, Sophia Caruth, Caprice.
So you're just reading
no
off.
first name.
Hold on.
Those are all names that are the new names. None of those are prior listed.
So those are all new names. Can you just kind of
new
skip
names.
through the ones that are notable?
If I can find notable ones.
But Destiny, there was a list at the end that wasn't just A through D. What was the list at the very end of the binder?
There's a masseuse list that was completely redacted for all the names of the masseuses that were hired. That list is completely redacted because they are considered victims.
So you're saying that the list at the end of the binder were people that actually were massaged, and is that what you're saying by that?
What I
They
see is
participated and they're seen
redacted.
they're considered victims, so it's redacted. That's what she's saying.
Well, no. There's a list. No, there's a list of names with big black redactions underneath at the end of the binder. That was quite a long list, and it's not an A.
No, they're victims. That's what she's saying. They're victims. Am I right?
Yeah, but there's a list, and it's listed at least to 27 victims for that redacted long list. And it says masseuse at the top of the list. So I'm assuming that they are masseuses and therefore considered victims because they were performing sexual acts on the person who's in question.
Can we put the names into Grok or AI and get them to tell us who any of these people are? Because
I wouldn't trust. I wouldn't trust
Grok
Grok with that right now. Like, if this is something that's important, like because it's been happening throughout the space, and it usually happens on every space. People go to Grok and expect it to be correct every time. Please do your own research and cite it. AI is very helpful for a lot of things, but when it comes to important facts right now, you need to verify it yourself. Don't trust Grok because AI still hallucinate. If you don't know what hallucination means, it means that it presents to you fictional information as if it's fact because it can't discern the difference between the two just quite yet. So,
yeah, Grok told me that I was a coach for the University of Georgia Bulldogs, which, as much as I think I am, yeah, I'm not.
Thank you. No offense to you, Penny, but it's just a fact.
Can we use like ChatGPT or something, put those names in and just have them like list out their company?
I just said what
you can do
through her AI right now.
The deep research mode on Grok will cite the web pages that it gets its information from. So if it's a name that you're unfamiliar with, and if they have been published for anything in the past, if they've been in the news, it may be able to connect you to possible matches. It doesn't even mean necessarily that it's the same person because a lot of people share names.
Exactly.
But it's a start, right?
Really important. Well, Penny, that is actually really important because I've been using Grok3 or trying to use it to create sales lists and call lists for folks, for clients. And I can tell you right now, it doesn't always get the contact info right. You've got to double check on this kind of thing. Make sure it's the right person.
Well, and these people knew they were on the list, so they could have had all of their internet history scrubbed.
Myron, go ahead, man.
Well, that wouldn't get rid of their, yeah.
Myron, you have your hand up. Jacktron, go ahead, man.
Oh,
all right.
what I was gonna say is, I'm back. Yeah, the two names I was talking about that people need to really look at if they want to, because here's the other thing too. I want to say, because someone went on his jet doesn't necessarily mean they're a predator. Like the other thing that people need to understand.
That's true.
Is that he did travel a lot of these people. They might not necessarily be predators. So you have to cross-reference those individuals with people that were linked to two people, Les Wexner and Jean-Luc Brunel. So Brunel, his job, and he's someone that no one really talks about. He was the guy that acquired all the underage models, where they were Victoria's Secret models or the ones that were kid models. He was a lot of the recruiting as far as like bringing these girls for Epstein. Les Wexner was the money. Brunel was the guy that actually got the girls, and that would be the main guy that would organize stuff for him. And then Ghislaine Maxwell's job was to kind of hook up Epstein with like these high-end UN officials. Her whole game was she would go to the UN and talk about the ocean and pollution and stuff like that. And then they'd have these parties after the fact, and her and Epstein would go to these parties, and they'd have these models with them that were like Victoria's Secret models, because obviously Les Wexner has a stake in Victoria's Secret.
Is he rugging for anybody else?
Model. He'd have. You guys hear me still?
You were rugging a little bit, yeah, but we heard most of what you said. Continue.
Okay, so So what Brunel would do is he would bring the, of age girls to the party, but then once it's time to like bring them to the island or anything else like that, that's when they would get the underage girls. And Brunel, just like Epstein, died in mysterious circumstances in a jail as well. He hung himself. And we all know that he didn't kill himself either. So it's very interesting that how both him and Epstein died of mysterious causes while incarcerated.
It is an incredible coincidence. Go ahead, Jack.
All right, so I saw on the list, I saw Michael Jackson, Naomi Campbell. I saw Ed.
Did you hear that? Can you say that first one again for Destiny in case you didn't hear it clearly? Who was that?
Michael Jackson.
One more time.
Michael Jackson.
He was on the flight logs for what?
It was just in those pages that
For what? What was the pages about?
The Epstein flight logs.
Okay, thank you so much. Continue.
Yeah, there was also, I said Naomi Campbell. I know there was also one of the initials that was mentioned a lot was SK. At first I thought it meant Stephen King, but it was actually a woman named Sarah Kellen, who's suspected of being the woman who was in that picture with Prince Andrew. I also saw Andrew Cuomo, I believe, was also on the list.
I told you, bitches. I told you.
Okay, I have the list of the current names that are notable. Ghislaine Maxwell, Virginia Lee Roberts. Oh, okay, she's an Epstein victim, but she's named. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
She was the one that sued.
Named in this current drop, Prince Andrew. He is named. James Michael Ostrich, Philip Barden. 6 is redacted. I'm guessing hopefully it's a victim or somebody who's caught up in an investigation. Kate Blanchett, David Bowes, Laura Booth, Evelyn Boulay, Rebecca Boylan, Josh Bunner, Naomi Campbell, as you said, Carolyn Casey, Paul Castle, Sharon Churcher, Bill motherfucking Clinton, who we know is a sexual deviant. And let's continue. David Copperfield, Alexandra Costeau, Cameron Diaz, Leonardo DiCaprio, Alan Dershowitz. That was the name I was trying to come up with earlier, Myron, that I was hoping would get mentioned. And Dr.
He was just a lawyer defending a lot of them.
Yeah, but still, he I mean, he did get I got a massage, right? He got a massage. So, anyways, yeah, we know he's a. Yeah.
Did you say Alexandria Ocasio?
No, is that how you say it? Costo? No.
Oh, I thought you were saying AOC.
She would have been like
Cousteau. So no. So, but yeah, I think it's Leonardo DiCaprio. Was that one we knew of before?
No.
Well, we know that he dumped his girlfriend.
That's a new name, bro. That's huge. What?
Leo dumps his girlfriends as soon as they turn 25. I mean, that's been a
like,
meme.
We're not saying the signs weren't there, but I don't think he was on that. I never heard. Yeah,
he dumps them in the North Atlantic. From what
he's like notorious for only dating like early 20-year-olds. So that's like, remember Ricky Gervais made that joke?
Okay, I have the second part of the list. Forrest Sawyer, Doug Shotiel, Kevin Spacey. Wow. And remember, folks, I am only listing off people named. Me listing it off does not imply guilt whatsoever. One of my friends is really good friends with Kevin Spacey, so he's definitely not going to be happy about that. All right, Forrest Sawyer, Kevin Spacey, Cecilia Stein, Mark Tafoya, Brent Tyndall, Kevin Thompson, Donald Trump, Ed Tuttle, Emma Vahan, Kimberly Vahan Edwards, Crescenda Valdez, Anthony Valderez, Maritza Vasquez, Vicky Ward, Jared Weisfeld, Courtney Wild, Bruce Willis, Daniel Wilson, Kathy Alexander, Miles Alexander. Some of these names are pretty big. Trump, I'm wondering if it's a correlation to the flight logs we already know of. I wish there was context to the list. Anybody want to comment on what I've read so far?
Bruce Willis, another big name.
I mean, I won't lie, I'm kind of upset about Bruce Willis.
That one cuts deep.
Forrest Sawyer, that former Fox anchor man?
Deep. Yes. I just looked him up. Forrest Sawyer is the nightly news guy.
I don't know if anybody would be surprised by Kevin Spacey.
Yeah,
I think Bruce was just trying to de-arm a bomb on the flight, if I remember the film right.
Isn't Mark Tafoya like ESPN?
No, that's Michelle Tafoya.
Is that her beau?
Okay, we got more here.
Is that like her homeboy? Maybe.
Bradley Edwards, Amanda Ellison, Kimberly Espinoza, Redacted, Jeffrey Epstein, Annie Farmer, Mary Farmer, Alexandra Fakai, Crystal Figueroa, Anthony Figueroa, Louis Frey, Eric Ghani, Meg Garvin, Sheridan Gibson Butt, Robert Giuffre, Al Gore, Ross Gaw, Fred Graff, Philip Guterine, Redacted, Shannon Harrison, Stephen Hawking, Victoria Hazel, Brittany Henderson, and Brett Jaff.
Stephen
I
Hawking.
can't believe Al Gore was on.
I wonder if he was riding with Bill when they.
Yo, what the hell is Stephen Hawking doing there? Like what?
So we knew Stephen Hawking visited Biden. That's not new.
No,
we have 90 names so far. And let me just say for the audience, please, you guys, not all of these people are new, right? So some of these, I'm thinking, it looks like some of these are actually a list of all of the compiled flight logs together, if I had to guess.
But was Al Gore on the previous list? Because he was doing so much work for climate change. He didn't have
Bruce
enough
Willis.
time.
I don't want to read into anything that Scott was saying, but Scott did say that there was a Democratic person that he had to Google. I don't know if he would have had to have Googled Al Gore. He is kind of young, Scott is, but you know, that 1993 would have been the time.
I'm gonna roll the dice and say.
What do you mean, bro? I think Scott's like around the same age as me. Like, what are you trying to say?
Who's the farmer
Were
family?
you 90? What?
Who's the farmers on there? Like you said, farmer.
I'll go through the list one more time since it's compiled, right? So we
That
have
could
90
be
so
reference
far.
to Maria Farmer, who was one of the victims.
We have, I think that's who it was, and she
That's
did.
what I
I
thought.
stopped reading it because it said victim next to it. So, but some victims have outed themselves, so that's neither here nor there. Ghislaine Maxwell, Virginia Lee Roberts Giuffre, and she was the victim, but it's listed, so I'm going to say it. Prince Andrew, James Michael Ostrich, Philip Barden, Kate Blanchett. I don't think she's been mentioned before. That's a big name. David Bowie's. That's wow.
Wait, David Bowie.
Wait, David Bowie?
Whoa!
Bowie's is Boies. Is that him?
No.
Well, they didn't actually
no.
have Bowie's with an S, but it could. I mean, it depends on if it's a misspelling or not, right? That's why we got to be super careful. Some of these names are going to be more obvious, and some of them it's like maybe double.
Well, I
check.
might not be pronouncing it correctly, right? So add that disclaimer in there. I'll post these in just a second. Naomi Campbell, like that's a big one.
Yeah, but she's rumored right now to be running
Jen, hold
a
on.
sex trafficking ring.
Bowie's-
She's a yacht girl.
All right, Bowie's, Schiller, and Flexner is a huge law firm in Manhattan. BOIES.
That makes sense. Yes, BOIES. Yes, sir.
Bowie, Schiller, Flexner is a firm of internationally recognized.
I'm going to
trial
post
lawyers.
this right now.
You ready for this? Crisis managers and strategy advisors.
No
Known
way.
for our creative and its pursuing successful outcomes for our clients. Yeah, they seem to be international crisis managers.
That's why
Whatever.
I'm saying we have to look up the names, right? Because to us, they might be nothing, but when you look them up, you're like, holy shit, wait, like this is actually a big deal.
Yeah.
So you guys can keep listening to Ground Control to Major Tom.
Thank
and
God.
Not feel bad about
Thank
it.
God. You know, one of the things we can
For
do with this
now.
list too is cross-reference it with people who have died suddenly or whatever in the last 4 years or 6 years since this stuff started coming out. That would be really good to do because some of these names obviously anonymous. But Bruce Willis, I mean, what happened? You know, I mean, some of these like very steep decline. One of the names I looked up, he died in 2020. You know what I mean? I keep looking up names, and some of them are gone.
It's a
Bruce
good point
Willis has
about
been
Bruce
doing a
Willis,
bunch
man.
of B-rated movies because his family's been pushing him to put as much content out and make as much money
He
because he
has
has some kind of
aphasia.
mental condition. Yeah.
He has aphasia.
I want to be clear. Die Hard is still not a Christmas movie. So
It absolutely is. It absolutely is.
I want to know the people that were on the flight with Clinton. I bet those are the dead ones.
But we still have no Pam Bondi
Well,
press conference.
So I it was Al Gore actually though. Was he on the first list? I don't think
No,
he
I
was.
don't.
guys.
I don't remember. It seems like now that I think about it, it seems like he was mentioned.
Clinton was.
Yeah,
Well,
but
I don't
see, this
remember
is
that.
the
Clinton
problem is
definitely
that
was.
people started
Yes,
naming
yes, you can.
names and doing stories when they like on quote unquote fake lists or fake drops. So like there's a lot of like overlap where they've been named and then said it was fake, but now they're back on the list kind of thing.
I remember
Diligent.
Stephen
I mean, Al
Hawkins
Gore could
mentioned.
just.
Ryan
Diligent.
Dawson
Did
has
you
done the
say Ed
footwork.
Krasenstein was one of the massagers or no?
That's a good
Well, if
question.
Kevin Spacey were there, they would have had to have had at least some gay content. So could have been.
Maybe his name is blocked out.
Chad, I got to say, we really took down Ed Krasenstein earlier. I mean, that was just brutal, man.
I enjoyed it. Thank you. It was fun.
Good times, team.
So the list that I
Diligent, you have more
have
names?
is now going to be up in the Jumbotron, but I just posted it if you want to look through it. What do you think is going to happen with these A-listers who were not previously mentioned? You know, are we going to hear public statements? Like, what do you think is going to be like? You know, Tupa, what do you think? You're into that sphere of knowledge, right?
What do you mean, like documents coming out and whatnot?
I mean, you think that they're going to put out like press statements to
They have
rebuke
to.
their name?
You can see, you could feel it. Like, I don't think the Trump administration has received this much backlash in anything they've done so far, because this is, you know, I mean, the expectations were so high, the stakes were so high. They have to get ahead of this. Otherwise, even you can see how the left is swinging this already, right? Like, in the absence of information, they're going to just insert Trump, insert whatever they want, and then make up those stories based on those weird questions. So yeah, they need to get ahead of everything and clear it up. And you know,
It depends how far down the rabbit hole they are. If they were like part of this, if they participated, at most you're probably going to get a statement from a lawyer. They can't take the risk of doing a press conference because they're all going to be prosecuted. So anything they say will be held and could be held against them from this point forward.
Can we start a Gibson Go or whatever for me, Kevin, and Jennifer to be at the Oscars and in the press pool asking questions?
That'd be pretty sweet. I think to Jennifer's
Someone just
point,
pointed
and this
out
was
that
said,
Boyes is that how do you say that name, Kevin, for the New York attorney that sounded like Bowies? Is it Boyes?
Buoys.
Boyes. Okay. Someone just said that Boyes was Gore's attorney in the 2000 election. I didn't know that. Interesting.
I think
Wow. Well,
Kate Blanchett won the Oscar last year, so she'll be there this year presenting it to the new Best Actress.
We need to be there.
Well, that would be an awkward press pool. I mean, look, like the thing is, it just like Pam Bondi said herself, and Alina Habba made the point actually on Piers Morgan. You know, a lot of the prosecutions are going to take time. So part of the reason I think that they were trying to be careful with this, and I think they kind of stepped on their foot multiple times trying to do this, but they were trying to make sure, I think, that they didn't poison the well for a possible prosecution, right? That's kind of what it seems like. Also, it's obvious that the FBI has not released all the data that they have. We have thousands of pages of documents, Pam Bondi said in her letter to Cash, front page of the binder, that have not been disclosed. And clearly the deep state, even though Trump's been trying to clean it out, Cash has, and Tulsi and all these folks, they're still there, preventing the documents from getting released. So I think that this is just the tip of the iceberg, and we're going to see an awful lot more come if we get the same, you know, level of commitment from Pam and Cash that they've already expressed. I think we will too. So I mean, but we have to wait because it's not going to be instant sauce. We're not going to just say like, oh, they're guilty, there you go. And actually, we got to be careful about what we say too, because individually, as Diligence already pointed out, any one of us could be sued theoretically for making too much of a statement about somebody that's not already been disclosed. You got to report what's already there. Just say, hey, here it is. But you got to be careful about making too much of a statement about it. Honestly.
Cameron Diaz.
She's on there?
Something about Mary.
Yeah, she's
Wow,
on there
bro,
right next
that's
to Leonardo DiCaprio.
that's disgusting.
Doesn't Cameron Diaz have a candle that's scented like her vagina?
That's
Gwyneth
Gwyneth
Paltrow.
Gwyneth Paltrow. It smells delicious.
Hollywood is
But
disgusting.
there's something
for
about
Christ's sake.
there's something about Mary definitely has its unique elements that would let's say point to yeah.
Can you guys rotate people up? You don't have to rotate people down yet, unless
Yeah.
if we bring up some new heads. We have some room, I think.
I heard that Gwyneth's candle actually smells like Cameron, though. Oddly.
Oh my gosh.
Line them
You
up.
guys are
Smell test.
disgusting, bro.
I was very curious what
Yeah.
Stephen Hawking was doing on there.
He's been on
I
there.
wouldn't know about what girls smell like, so don't ask me.
And
Listen, Stephen Hawking did more with digitizers than Wreck-It Ralph. Okay, somehow Stephen Hawking was able to like have multiple wives, have all these dalliances, and God only knows how he did it. I mean, he must have been like some in quantum state or something, because he was freaking everywhere, doing all kinds of crazy
I
stuff.
just want to discredit. I just want to discredit Ed. Something Ed said though, like it shows that the fact that Trump's mentioned in this list, it shows that this is an unbiased release of information, and so let the chips fall where they may.
George Lucas is on the list.
Yo, good. Star Wars.
I don't think that
Star
was.
Wars
I don't think
sucks.
that's new. I don't think that's new.
Yeah, you're looking at the old list. These are these. So the list that the names that I just put out are ones.
Your list.
Oh, was it? I might have missed it. Okay. So I can't believe I read it twice, and I must have. Well, maybe I skipped one. I don't know. It's hard to run the space and read at the same time. But someone else read the list then, because obviously I'm too distracted.
Yeah, yo, fucking read it. I'll run it.
In your accent, you got to put in some commentary when you get to the good names.
Can't his accent.
I got you. Don't worry. First off, I'm going to be clear. I'm going to ignore Bruce Willis because I like him.
Christmas movie. It's a Christmas movie.
Sounds like you're biased, hey, Kevin. Hey. Let's see. What do we got? I will not comply. What do you got?
Can we just see that Lilius Express was ADA compliant?
Yeah, I've been trying to. Are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Yes.
Thank you. I've been trying to get up here before the Krasenstein incident to try to just.
Yeah, there's 50 requests, bro. So like, you know.
Yeah. I understand it's a popular space right now, popular subject. I just wanted to temper everyone's expectations before the list officially became available, and also wanted to try to get Scott Presler to give some kind of indication what information was available, because just a flight log alone is not going to give us any of the information we need to be able to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt anything whatsoever. This guy was very wealthy, very well connected, liked to party, fly around all over the place. With whose money, we don't know yet. Hopefully we get to the bottom of this. But there was a lot of people on his flights for a long time. And just because Bruce Willis flew on his plane one time doesn't mean he went to Epstein Island and dillied with kids. It's a useless document that they released today. The way they went about going through this is absolutely frustrating. Having people hold up the binders like it was a trophy, and then not being able to share the information, that was a troll. It was a photo op, and it's frustrating. I love the people that they got in there. I follow almost all of those people. I don't not like the people. It's the way that they went about doing it, and then only to have a whole bunch of redacted names of victims and a comprehensive list of people who ever flew. What we need is an itinerary. There needs to be a list of every single person on the flight with the blacked out names of the victims on the flight. Then we can associate the names on the list with the fact that they were traveling with people who were victims on the flight. Then we could speculate a little bit more with more clarity. Hey, these people are potentially or guilty of a crime. But just having initials on a pilot's flight log, this is useless information.
Yeah, because there's no context provided, and we've been declaring that as we go through this, right? And even in the post where I put the list, I said being on this list does not imply guilt of anything. What we need to is have the images and the videos of both the mansions in Florida, New York, as well as what happened, all of the videos and photographic evidence that was taken at the island, right? That would definitely single out who's guilty of what, and do so in a manner that doesn't show any private, doesn't none of us want to see anything.
The only list
none of
that
us want to
matters-
see anything disgusting, and none of us want to dox the identity of the victims. But they could definitely show the faces of the individual as they were coming and going to those locations.
Wait, Diligent. So I think I know who Scott was talking about. I think I know who Scott was talking about. Bill Richardson, who was the former governor of New Mexico. And I would just like to point out, you had the double murder of who was it, Hackman last night, and his wife and the dog in New Mexico, where Jeffrey Epstein also had a ranch. So I'm just saying it's a little odd.
He bought Zero Ranch from Bill Richardson also. He was the prior owner. And whatever strange outfitting or subterranean anything has to be a strange look at Bill Richardson himself.
Who's got a hand up? Go ahead. The questionable gardener.
You touched on this a little bit, but I was going to remind everybody, whatever list you see, whatever you see posted, if it's not from somebody who actually got one of these binders, if it's not the official White House release, be careful what you're posting. You are, it's not directly doxing, but you are doxing people to an extent with this. Even a list like Diligent posted, it's hand typed. Most of what's been shown so far has been screenshots of handwriting. So be wary about what you're
That's because the flight logs were handwritten.
Right. So be wary of if somebody retypes something. If you're not verifying, nothing against your list. I appreciate you putting that out there. But
Did you read the disclaimer on my list?
I did, yes.
Okay.
But people will take that and run with it without reading your disclaimer. And you can read.
I'm not responsible for what people do after I put the information out there.
Right.
The list that I got, the list that I acquired was from a credible source. So.
Right. And that's what I wanted to point out. Is everybody make sure you're getting it from a credible source.
Well, Gardner, keep in mind, Gardner, if it's from the actual binder, like there's screenshots of the binders. Okay, there was a lady that went through the whole thing, and there's a couple of people now going through it. Like, if it's just like on one level, you're right. Of course, I agree that you got to be very careful. But now that the White House has put this out and Bonnie's put this out, I think that would be a pretty easy defense to prosecution against something like doxing. Even though I agree with you, you should still be careful because obviously some of these people could be innocent. And I agree with those who said, look, it doesn't necessarily mean anything, but that's why you got to be cautious. Diligence being very responsible, to be honest with you.
Right. Yeah. Verify what you're finding. Don't just repost it to be reposting it. Like Ed coming up here earlier, everybody knows him by now. He's just a.
Yeah, he's not here to defend himself, and I don't want to spend the space talking about Ed. But
no, I'm just using him as example, not directly after him.
Scott, what do you got, brother?
No,
what's up, George?
I just wanted to say, so all the files are released now. Everything is out there, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me just clarify one thing because I think this is very important. Some people are getting the impression that, we receive these files to then be the curators or the arbiters of getting the information out there, and that's just not the case. That all the information is supposed to be released at the same time. That's why there was an embargo. That's very important that I put that out there. Everything is supposed to be released at the same time, not have information go prior, be the ones giving it to you. That's part A. Part B, there was no photo shoot. We walked out of the West Wing of the White House and there were cameras there, and yes, we did hold up the files and the binders, but there was no like, okay, everybody come over here, we're now going to take a photo all together for the media to see. No, the media was out there when we left the West Wing. So I just want to clear that up because I think it's important that everybody's on the same page.
So, Scott, you've had the binder for a while now. I called on you earlier. We have a list compiled. Let me ask you, what have you found since you've been sitting there with it for the last hour and a half or so?
Well, here's the most important, or one of the most important names that I see on here is several times you have Senator George Mitchell, who is listed on the flight logs. Now, the flight logs themselves are pretty innocuous. It's just, places in Florida. It was like Kissimmee Airport, and it was also, Miami Airport. But here's one thing that I found, which, if somebody wants to have some fun sleuthing. So I was like, okay, who in the world is Senator George Mitchell? And I found an article from the Portland Press Herald back in 2019. And here's the title: Former Senator George Mitchell denies contact with alleged Epstein victim. And it says a woman who said she was kept as a sex slave for financier Jeffrey Epstein named Mitchell among a group of powerful men she said Epstein instructed her to go to. And I'm not here to say anything, I'm not here to allege anything, but I think it's interesting that we have this article where the senator denied having any contact with a victim, and yet we now have flight logs that show this senator was indeed tied to at least being in proximity with Epstein, going on flights with him, etc. And so, whether people want to make a conclusion, but I think it's interesting tying those two things together and him denying any plausibility, any relationship.
Scott, can I ask you a question real quick? I haven't seen an actual download link for the entire binder. Is that out there yet?
I cannot answer that. I don't know.
Okay. So well, hold on real quick. So at the
go
end, when the other person, I'm not going to mention even who it was, the other individual was going through the entire binder, and I was kind of asking a couple of questions as that individual did that. On X. There was, at the very end of the binder, there was a list of names, and then there were black boxes or redactions underneath the names that seemed either maybe like contact information or something else. What is the context of that list? Because that's a different list of names than just the flight log. And frankly, some of those names are different than the list that Diligent gave. So you've got the binder. What is the stuff at the very end? I mean, Destiny's thumbs down at me, but I'm asking Scott for my own clarification. There's a lot of information flying around here, guys. So, but what is that context of that list of names specifically, Scott?
No.
Some housekeeping real quick though. Is Black George on stage? Because he requested it. It looked like he jumped back down. If he's not, can you bring him back up for me, please? Thank you. And I just say Black George because it's easier to identify him that way. Go ahead, Scott. Answer.
No context other than it says asterisk redactions for personal contact information. And then it has different things like, for example, on here, it will say coffee shop, Beverly Wilshire, Four Seasons Hotel.
At the very end, yeah, it has some like places, right? But like that's when I was saying earlier at the very, very earlier part of the space, when it was like, well, it's all out there. And I was like, well, RFK's on there, Senator Kennedy's on there. He's not on the list that Diligent posted, but he was in the back on that list. And that was the list that I saw and paid very close attention to, took notes on when she was going through this other person. But I don't know why that's a different list than the flight log, Scott. And I'm not sure, like, it sounds like there's no context for why that's a different list. So that's kind of bizarre. They wouldn't give any context at all.
Well, here's a question. Is Liz Wheeler credible?
Yeah, she is credible.
Okay, here's what she said. She said, this is the story. President Trump and AG Pam Bondi committed to releasing the Epstein files. The FBI was told to deliver the files to Bondi. They did, about 200 pages. Bondi smelled a rat because there was nothing juicy in the 200 pages, just flight logs and a Rolodex of phone numbers, no smoking gun. Still, Bondi promised to release the document, so she prepared a binder of them. Then, last night, a whistleblower contacted Bondi and revealed that the SDNY was hiding potentially thousands of Epstein files, defying Bondi's order to give them all to her. We're talking recordings, evidence, etc., the juicy stuff, names. The swamp creatures at SDNY deceived Bondi, Cash, and you. Be outraged that the binder is boring. You should be, because the evil deep state lied to your face. Bondi is now demanding all the Epstein evidence from SDNY plus an investigation into the persons who committed this act of defiance. It goes on, but yeah, she says that's the story.
I just want to say, Scott, like, I think that you are so unbelievably credible, and that's why you got this. And there were a couple people who were like, well, why did some of these people get it? I just hope nobody hears questions why Scott.
No simping on my stage.
Well, no. There's no simping, dude. I mean, like,
no one's doubting Scott's credibility. That's
I think it's really important to note that some of the folks chosen, now there are a couple of questionable, maybe ones, arguably, but like, I don't like if Scott is has a take on it here, I think we should believe him. I saw a couple of comments that were like, well, you can't trust these people. And I'm like, come on, guys. If Scott's telling you, I think it's probably accurate. I think Liz Wheeler as well. So, I think there's a lot of like skepticism because it's not crazy information. But just like Gaze was saying, like in the first page of the thing, for goodness sakes, Pam Bondi is clearly saying to Cash publicly, like, FBI is hiding this, right, Scott? I mean, it seems like that's what's going on.
Look, 90% of the people making a fuss about who got this, I'll say it, they're pissed that they didn't get it. I mean, let's just be clear here. Would I have loved to?
I'm not complaining about it now that we have information.
Look,
I just wanted the information.
No. Yeah, look, some people are genuine about it. But look, if the White House called me, it was like, hey, Kev, why don't you come on down? I got this binder for you.
That's true.
You think I'm going to say no to it? Like, you think if I'm Jack and I have this, I don't immediately go live on my show? Like, every person with a show is going to do that. And the people that are pissed off that they didn't get called, well, why is Emily, she's a sports reporter. Like, all right, like, maybe she got a friend in the DOJ. Like, like, you just made you didn't get called. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
go ahead, Scott. Go ahead, Scott.
Wait,
hold on.
Scott, can you just explain how people were chosen, or why do you think they were chosen?
Yeah, I can't tell you that going into this meeting. I can only tell you that I didn't know who was coming as well. I received my invite. I did not know until I walked into the meeting which other people.
How long ago did you receive your invite?
Within the last 14 days. But I will say,
there you go, Jennifer. There's your answer.
But I will say this though. I think here's really what people are leaving out of this. A, I agree. There's no smoking gun. B, there's no context. And C, here's the most important thing that I think people are really glossing over. This letter from Bondi to Patel really makes it clear. I think here's basically what she's saying, that this binder that everybody has all this palace intrigue over is not the smoking gun, guys. It says, I received approximately 200 pages of documents, which consist primarily of the flight logs and eliciting. I repeatedly questioned whether this was a full set of documents and was assured that by the FBI that we had the full set. And it wasn't. That the whole thing is, this isn't the smoking gun. And if anything, the findings that we're going to get within the next 14 days of the full set of documents, that is probably going to be, if anything, that proverbial smoking gun.
Wait a second. Why are you saying in the next 14 days? You were informed of a rollout?
No, that's in the letter, Diligent.
Hey, here, lend me your ear for one moment. So this is the actual document from today. It says, quote unquote, this is Pam Bondi. By 8 p.m. tomorrow, February 28th, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office, including all records, documents, audio, and video recordings, and materials related to Jeffrey Epstein and his clients, regardless of how such information was obtained. There will be no withholdings or limitations to my or your access. The DOJ will ensure that any public disclosure of these files will be done in a manner to protect the privacy of the victims and in accordance with law, as I have done my entire career as a prosecutor. Now, here's the most important part. Quote, Pam Bondi, I am also directing you to conduct an immediate investigation into why my order to the FBI was not followed. You will deliver to me a comprehensive report of your findings and proposed personnel action within 14 days. I appreciate your immediate attention to this important matter. I know they were both committed to transparency, yada, yada.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I actually, now that you read it out again, I do remember them saying that. I wonder, because we've seen evidence of pushback from within the FBI and the DOJ as far as releasing these, or we've even had whistleblowers come forward saying that, there was deletion of files. I'm curious if you can answer this, Scott. When you were there today, did you hear any of that mentioned about the supposed sabotage within the DOJ or the FBI?
Well, I think this letter is proof evidence of that. I mean, this isn't the first time we are learning that government agencies are trying to be saboteurs for the administration. I mean, didn't we just read with DHS and Christy Nome that there were members of that organization that were tipping off people that are in our country illegally that ICE is coming. I mean, this is not the organization that we have sabotaged coming from within.
I think that's fair to say. George.
Hey, Scott.
I
quick
hold
question for
on,
you,
brother. Hold on. I'll call you in a minute. George is my brother. I literally called him from down below. I even called him Black George, which he made fun of me for via text message. I think George is with me. I wasn't very happy with the implementation of the rollout today. George, what are your thoughts, man? And what do you think about the list? And what do you think about what Scott just said about rogue agencies?
Well, yeah, this is probably more fodder that we need to shut down the FBI. But so I think the general frustration that a lot of people have is that we had mixed messaging. I mean, a week ago, Pam Bondi said she was reviewing these documents. They were on her lap. She never gave any indication that she didn't get all the documents. You know, the impression was that she had everything and she was reviewing it. And then yesterday she said some will be released and it's going to be shocking stuff. She said 250 victims. So we're all thinking today she's going to do like a press conference and announce some website, declassification.gov or something like that. And then the whole world's going to have access to some information and then more could come out later. That was my anticipation. I didn't think anyone would be getting binders. And yeah, I get Kevin's point. There are people that are upset that they didn't get invited. But I think most people agree that it's kind of odd that if we're doing a declassification of something as important as this, that it should be a public affair. It should be just as transparent as possible. And I don't have anything against any of the influencers. Scott Presler, again, I don't want to simp for him. I'm not gay, but he's great. It's just you know, we would have preferred if things were done different. Imagine if Joe Biden did a cognitive test and it was classified, and then he wanted to declassify it, invited Harry Sisson and all his dorks, those circles, and just invited those Democrat influencers in and gave them the test results to release to the public or be involved in the release of the public. I think we would disagree with that. And here we should rightfully criticize what is a botched release. You know, it's like a Marvel movie these days, man. They come out, no one watches them. It's kind of like that, except now we have the GOP, the House Judiciary, posting nonsense, making it look like it's a joke. It's not a joke. We waited a long time for these records. The victims of Jeffrey Epstein waited a long time to get the truth out there. And it would be really good if, you know, this was done a little bit more professionally. I don't think this is President Trump's fault. I'm giving Pam Bondi the benefit of the doubt. Kash Patel just got in there. He doesn't know how corrupt the FBI is because it's deeper than we think.
Who do we think the quarterback for this was?
Well, I think it was just an earnest mistake. I don't think it was some deliberate effort to create a photo op, but it just so happens that they invited people who would happily do a photo op. I mean, Liz Wheeler, I don't know her personally.
George, if you had been invited, would you have gone? And
of course I would have gone, man. I would have gone on the other side. And yes, look, Liz Wheeler did a whole picture and made it look like it was some school trip. I'm like, nah, you got to be a little bit more serious. Don't be out there.
Yeah, they were like smiling and like grinning. Like it was a little bit like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah. All right, I'm out.
Hey, couple questions for Scott.
Thank you, George.
So, Scott, I heard. Yeah, great cogent points, George. Lovely to hear you, man. Hey, so Scott, two questions for you. First, you said you had been invited some couple of weeks ago. Obviously, that was likely before the groundswell of surge in the last 48 hours for the list. I would imagine you were brought for a more broad media reason, for independent journalists, et cetera. And I think you guys and your group was kind of commandeered because you happened to be in there on the day today. That's one quick question. The other point is that you had mentioned that in the drop when you just came on to the space here 5 minutes ago, you said, okay, you guys have all of the info. Okay, great. But what this space is actually acting on is only a list that Diligent has posted, which may or may not be inside of your binder. So is there anything that you wanted to share into the nest?
I got
or
that
anything you wanna
list
read
from
through?
somebody who has the binder.
Well, that's 3 pages. I would imagine in the 109, there's something that's not there that maybe Scott could add or square for us.
Can you shorten
In
your
the
question?
nest, there's a list that Diligent posted. Well, yes, we have a list of 3 pages of names, and you have a binder of 109 pages. I'm wondering if you wanted to square or reconcile anything that we don't have listed in the nest. And Diligent's last post is the list of the 3 pages, just for reference.
I am happy to take a look at that. I mean, it's as I go through 110 pages, that's more more easily said than done. So far, I don't see. I mean, Andy Stewart's name. Here's the only thing: is there isn't a lot of context in some of these names, and the last thing that I want to do is implicate somebody that could share a name with somebody else. Now, I do see Alan Dershowitz in here. But again, I think one important thing to look at is the points of departure and the points of arrival and where these people are going to and from. I think that is an important concept.
And that's exactly what was laid out in my post earlier today when I said I did say this. I just want to cite that my source today what we were going to get. I was told that we would get new flight logs. I was told that there would be new names on it, and that the durations would be the most important part, because you'll be able to see if they went to the island and how long they were there, which would probably be the most important context that you'd be getting out of all of the information that we have today. And you kind of just reiterated that. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, real quick, I just posted the nest. DC Drano, who we know was there, is going through the actual binder on video, showing each page as he opens the binder. So if you're interested, step in the nest.
I'll get it. I'll actually get that going on the video screen. So thank you for that.
Yep, cool. And then I had a quick question, because Scott now referenced it twice, that I just wanted to be clear, because I don't think anyone was talking the correct way earlier. So, Scott, you mentioned the destinations, the points of origin. You have that information attached to these names, or are they separate from the names?
I mean, this isn't a live feed, though.
So, for example,
oh yeah, it is.
On each page, it begins with the date. You have the aircraft, you have the aircraft identification mark, and then you have the points of departure and arrival. So, for example, I have 3 different lines, all including Alan Dershowitz, just as an example. Not any alleging anything, just giving you context. So, on the a day in 1996, Alan first went from DCA, which is Ronald Reagan International Airport, to CMH. On that very same day, he then went from CMH to TEB, which I do believe is New Jersey Bergen Airport. And then the only other context is the next day, he went from TEB to BOS, which is Baston. So it doesn't say anything about, it's not like he's going to the Virgin Islands. He's not going to the island, but it shows 2 different days. Now, some of these other people, they will have gone all of their trips within 1 day on the same venture.
Has anyone done the work to see which was to and from the adjacent islands that receive airports? And then also for you, Scott, have you heard any discussion of Ghislaine flight logs, whether by helicopter, submarine, or any other private airfare?
Well, on here, I would probably assume that GM is going to be Ghislaine Maxwell pretty much in perpetuity throughout this document. Now, Ghislaine is almost in every single flight. You see GM over and over and over and over throughout the years, all the way from when is this starting?
It said she was a helicopter pilot.
Yeah, as you look there, Scott, exactly. It's the provenance of what you're sharing, and I think what we're all looking at is a function of Epstein's flight, the Lolita Express, or maybe his other private plane. But have you heard?
So you can see some of the names of. I just want to call your attention to the video of what DC Drano, and shout out to him. Thank you for sharing this. You can see some of the names that are on the list that I just mentioned, or that I have up in the Jumbotron, are actually were on that page that he just had. So it kind of confirms the validity of that. But there's a lot of heavily redacted information in this binder. Look at that.
Well, I think it's important to point out
because it's the victims, right? This is all victims.
The series of events, right, that Scott's talking about, right? So there was a planned event today at the White House, right? Last night, Pam Bondi got new information, a tip that they were withholding information that she didn't know about, right? So they were going to release the documents today. However, last night they found out that there was documents being withheld, right? So this is a fluid situation.
Yeah, so Diligent, that's the list. I'm sorry, that's the list I was asking Scott about at the end that Drano showed, that Rogan showed, that basically it was like contact information was redacted, but then they have obviously all the victim information is separate, and that's also redacted. And then at the end of that list, actually in the list with the contact information redacted, you'll notice that there's a separation where at one point it says something like, whatever the street is, like basically, I think referring to his townhouse is what that's doing, is like there's a list related to the townhouse, and then there's a separate list, presumably related to the plane. That list does not include Donald Trump. It does include Ivanka Trump and Ivana Trump, I think, on there. But it doesn't have Donald on that specific list. And that was the list that had Bobby and Mary Kennedy. That was the list that had Senator Ted Kennedy and some other names of note. But there were some differences between that list and the flight logs that appeared. So, I mean, that's, again, without the context, it's kind of hard to know what is all of this stuff. And I think that's what Pam Bondi's going to try and figure out over the next few days.
Go ahead, Michael.
And if you're asking if these people are trustworthy, they kept this under wraps for at least like however long they've had the invite, right? So none of them knew who else was going, and we didn't know there was going to be influencers there today. So like if you're asking if these people are credible, like obviously, like I think there's your answer.
Really a dumb question.
Except for the one that was reading off the list before she was supposed to. I think she might have tarnished her credibility a little bit. Go ahead, Scott, respond, and then we'll go to Michael.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think the fact that nobody knew this was happening today with these folks speaks to the fact that we didn't have leaks. I mean, I didn't tell a soul, we were instructed not to. And quite frankly, I see this almost as maybe a little bit of a test. We were told the embargo. I have not released anything, even, prior to the presser. And so when we're told not to do something, I mean, quite frankly, I'm going to listen to the administration. Maybe this was a test for us, quote unquote, influencers.
Well, Scott, I want to say, to add to that real quick. So one of the things that the Trump administration started doing to figure out who was leaking information, I don't know if anybody here is aware of this. I'm probably several of y'all are. But one of the things that they've started doing, it's not a secret, is that they will change the wording, for example, on emails and documents that are sent to multiple people, right? So there might be like 1,000 people that get something, but they'll slightly change a word here or there, a comma, add an extra spacing, so that if something's released to the press, and this started during the first Trump administration in earnest, then they would know, it was this person that released it because of the wording slightly being different or whatever. So I think you're exactly right. When they see that people are actually being trustworthy, and yes, there was one person that stupidly went, over their skis a little bit, probably won't get invited back to the party. But you certainly will be, as well as the others who were respectful, like Rogan of the embargo. And that is a great example of how citizen journalism is often more responsible than the mainstream media.
Go ahead, Michael.
So I found out some information that Scott and everybody else may find a little interesting regarding George Mitchell. He was the Democrat Senate Majority Leader back in the early '90s and mid to late '90s and early 2000s. And around the same time that he was in office as the Majority Leader, Jeffrey Epstein made about $80,000 in political contributions to hit the Democrat Senate Majority PAC, actually. And which is on the federal public records. And around the same time too, after he left office, he actually served in the Bill Clinton administration. So Jeffrey Epstein made direct political contributions to his group while he was the Majority Leader, and has ties to Bill Clinton as well.
By the way, Eric Swalwell's tweeting out mocking us about the Epstein shit.
Well, guess what? Epstein was a Dem, Swalwell.
Go ahead, Destiny.
Real quick, do we know if Pam Bondi or does Scott know? Is there still supposed to be a press conference tonight?
Someone told me earlier that it was that we weren't going to get one until tomorrow, but we'll see. I mean, I'm looking. I haven't seen one. It sounded like Scott was assuming there was going to be a press conference, right? Scott, or no?
You can't. You couldn't do this with the UK guy.
Can
There.
can you let Scott answer, please? Thank you. Go ahead, Scott.
I heard there was going to be a presser today. So I mean, quite frankly, and just I want to communicate this clearly. Until the AG comes out and releases this, I'm going to be a good boy and I'm going to hold on to at least my information until the instructions are followed. If everybody else wants to release theirs, that's cool, whatever. But like, just so you know, if you keep saying, Scott, release what you have, until the AG does her presser, I'm going to hold this close to my vest.
Nothing wrong with that, Scott. We appreciate your integrity, sir. Go ahead, Destiny.
Okay, from just the names that were on inside the binder, I've gone ahead and had to like scrub to get the clear image of the names. There are some really interesting characters that are listed verifiably, and I can verify they are the right person because they're listed with their spouse, and the odds of them having the same person, same name, and happen to be related to Jeffrey Epstein is very rare. So the names that are definitely verifiable that were not in the original list but are new to these lists is Gustavo and Patricia Cernesos, which are Venezuelan multi-billionaires. They are the one of the largest holders of Univision, one of the largest funders of MoMA, the Modern Art Museum in New York. They're also the chairman and CEO of Grupo Cercernos, which is the largest private media entertainment holding company in the world. So that was one of the first big ones that kind of came across like, wow, big people. You also have a Formula One driver from Italy. His name is Giuseppe Cipriani. He's also a businessman and he owns a chain of hotels, luxury hotels called Soprani SA, which I guess are international hotels. So those are really interesting to find as well. There's also some descendants of Italian royalty here. I'm not going to pronounce this correctly. Sigogna family, which is Marina, Gianfranco, George Rosa, and Gianluca. They are all from merchant banker families that are also tied in slightly with some very slight heir to something. All of them are extremely wealthy, multimillionaires, if not billionaires. You've also got John and Lucy Schmidt Trench, which are copywriters and they do books. They're publishers. So that's like the full list of people I've got through the list so far. I'm just verifying all the names that we've gotten off the new list to see who they are. So I'm just doing the legwork.
Thank you, Destiny. Much appreciated. Go ahead, Confluence, and then Tom.
Yeah, I was just going to ask Scott if he heard any murmurs of other modes of traffic or other data sets of other manifests, namely Ghislaine on a helicopter or even a submarine, which she was also licensed. Any murmurs in the White House corridors of such other manifests, or is this looking like the only flight log that will be in question?
Dude, a submarine? Seriously?
She was a licensed pilot, well documented, and there's also
The helicopter
discussion, though,
pilots documented. The rest I haven't seen a lot of receipts for, but let's let Scott answer.
Well,
let's let Scott answer, please.
I'll post,
he was responding
I'll post
to you.
the submarine info in the nest.
Go ahead, Scott.
No, it just sounds like this is only the tip of the spear of information, and it seems to me like we're sitting on a lot of more documents that are going to come. That's what it sounds like.
That's my assessment as well. Go ahead, Tom.
Hey, yeah. So I dodged into space earlier with another person that had this information, and they were on the record as saying that the vice president invited everybody to the White House and that they didn't know what they were getting and that it was kind of just dumped on them. And that President Trump came in and said hello. But that was the word, at least that she's reporting. She's a reporter. She reported it. Don't shoot the messenger. That's just what was said in the other space before she went through all the names, of course, or quite a few of them. And so it was interesting that, and people asked, I think it was Jess, were you given a timeline or is this allowed? And she was like, oh, yeah, I'm telling y'all everything. And she said that there should be a phase 2 and a 3 and a 4, I guess maybe multiple phases. I'm not sure how many. But she was very forthcoming with everything and acted like she had permission. So maybe she's either A, didn't get the communication, or B, is just doing her own thing. I'm not certain
So
what's going on there.
Tom, that was me, and I asked her. I said, "Do you have did you break the embargo?" And I was ready to talk about the names that I noted that were in there, and I did. I screenshot, took some notes, and then Scott Presler came in here, frankly, and said, "Well, wait a minute, no, we're not supposed to release it." And so I didn't want to talk about it at that point, except I thought, well, maybe it's okay to say RFK because he's a public figure. But like that was kind of the problem: is you cannot have people going out and defying the president on this. That's why they would say, "Wait a minute, maybe we need to just do this a different way." It's not like we need to be super careful and keep our privileges because we have a right to know the information, guys. But I
thought it was
wish
odd.
that had been differently. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a difference between privileges. There's a distinction to be made between privileges and access, right? And I think that's what.
Yeah, I just thought it was odd that her, of all people, was the person that was like, okay, here's everything, when there's all these other people that got the same information and they're not saying anything. I'm like, okay, I was with Jess on this when I was like trying to get a little bit more clarity.
No, she put it out before Trump's. They were supposed to wait until the shared press conference was over with between Trump and the UK Prime Minister, and she started reading it as soon as she got it, as soon as she got in the car.
Well, and acting like it was dumped on her, and it was an
press
inconvenience to go to the White House, and Trump just walked in and said hello. Like, it's an absolute honor to be in that room, and no. Mm-mm.
She also had contended that she had asked specifically, and I don't know the providence of her answer, but she had at least answered the question when asked of her, "Oh yes, there was an embargo, but I reached out specific and I was granted this."
I don't remember.
I don't know if I
don't remember that. I mean, what I asked her, number one, I said, "Is there anything other than the flight logs?" And then she said yes. And then she flipped to the end and she read through it. She looked through the contact list. She went through every page of that. And then I asked her, "Was there an embargo that you are you breaking the embargo or something like that, Tom?" And she said, "No, I'm not breaking the embargo. Like, it's okay, whatever." And you figure that somebody that's been invited there, just like Scott, just like Liz, that they're going to respect those rules. So it was a little surprising that she said, I mean, I don't know if she just forgot. I think if you're at the White House, you would not forget that.
She clearly did not forget because she was mentioning, she was explicitly asked about the embargo during the space, right? You asked her, others asked her.
Well, and she was acting
Well,
like
something has
Bill
to have
Clinton
happened
was a big
because
deal. That should have been our first red flag.
Yeah, DC Drano just basically put his camera on the binder and went page by page by page.
Because it was supposed to be so the deal was, and Scott said this, they were supposed to wait until they had their press conference from Pam Bondi, but apparently that either got scheduled or delayed, and which was supposed to be at the conclusion of the press conference of the Prime Minister. The press conference of the Prime Minister was really, that ending was the signal for the release of the files. It looked like
Now, honestly, once one person has already come out and put it out there, and then you have all these huge accounts tweeting out, "Oh, look, I see Bill Clinton."
Scott, you heard Scott say that the synchronization of the release of the files was the primary goal or the primary mission when it comes to when they were supposed when it came to the embargo.
Hey, George, I'm curious. So George had a criticism about this, and I'm just curious, George.
Well, let's let Scott respond to what I was saying. Go ahead, Scott.
I apologize.
No, 100%. It was supposed to be synchronized, and I think that's why you're seeing the confusion of the timing. It was absolutely supposed. Now, I'm not here to throw anyone under the bus. That's not my intent. That's not my goal. My goal is to continue to receive that trust, which is why I didn't want to violate anything.
Well, Scott and George and anybody else, do you guys think it would have been better? Because I know, George, you were being a little bit critical. Scott, you're trying to honor the White House, which I totally respect because I'm 100% MAGA. Do you guys think it would have been better if they just put the files all online, like all at once? Like, here's the link, go look at it for yourself, guys, and had a press conference. Would that have been a better situation?
Yeah, 100%.
And they could have even still did the binder thing, right? But as soon as those binders were known, that link should have been available.
Scott, would you
if
have
there's
been
criminal action?
Well, Scott, would you
If there's criminal action or forthcoming indictments, there's no reason that this would all be assumed to be lumped out. You can't just blow all your future cases by giving all the thirsty mob all of the information.
No,
immediately.
the
And that's
president of the
another thing.
United States signed an order saying these things that were declassified are going to be, or classified,
That's
are going to be declassified. So there's no, oh, this is going to be used for a criminal case, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that can happen. But the president explicitly said, gave him a timeline and said, go release these documents. The people deserve to know. So
that was the JFK documents struck into an executive order, but there wasn't actually a stated timeline from the president. On
he gave him within this time frame, the attorney general shall do this, blah, blah, blah. But the point is, they were going to be released anyways. All the documents were going to be released, the ones that the DOJ has in their possession.
There's the response letter from AG Pam Bondi's office. It wasn't penned by her, but somebody in the AG replied to Anna Luna in her request that was very public, and they responded with a very public document. And in the third paragraph, there's a reference to delays potentially as a function of ongoing investigation. So as much as we want it, they can't fuddle up anything that's forthcoming in terms of indictments. And also, those are the real important things. We clamor for full transparency day zero, and I understand that. I'm on the bandwagon as well. But if that's going to jeopardize the real grist, which is indictments and people being held accountable, obviously we would all have some willing timing.
Yeah,
on
but
that.
don't act like these people haven't known that their names are going to be coming out. How long has this Epstein thing been going on? They have been known at least 4 years that their names were going to be coming out on a list one day.
Scott, you
So
got the binder.
I got to interrupt real quick, you guys. First of all, I have to end the space here in a little bit, so I will be wrapping up in the next 5 or 10 minutes or so. Make sure you're following all of my panel. Make sure you're following Scott Presler. Thank you for your work, sir. Subscribe to him. Best way to support him. The best way to support me is by subscribing. I have a pink button on my profile, and I will be hosting an after space immediately after I end this one. There's a link up in the Jumbotron. We'll go through the panel and get some final statements, and then we'll wrap it up. Whoever was talking, go ahead. Continue.
I was just going to say there's a reporter named David Riley who said that a redacted page is what was given to the influencers at the White House today. The unredacted page has been freely available on the internet for years, and he has 2 pictures that shows one with it fully redacted with the names and addresses and phone numbers of the people, and then one picture of the binder where it just shows the people's names and everything else is redacted.
The list has already been out, and they lied and said it wasn't the list to throw everybody off.
Go ahead, Jordan. So there's new names on this list, though.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is that out of all the journalists that are there, the only one you could probably trust is Scott. If you really think about it, he's the only one that didn't actually release anything. Now they know, okay, phase 2, I'm not gonna now we know exactly who to bring. Now bring in a different set of reporters.
No. I think phase 2 should just be the normal plan of posting it on a website for everyone to open source the information. I mean,
I don't disagree with you on that, but you also have to understand they also wanted to try something new, which they've been trying something new with, bringing in new journalists, new influencers, whatever.
No, I agree. I agree.
And realistically, who are you going to trust? The government, or are you going to trust Scott?
I would trust the people. I would trust the people. Put it on a website. I would trust the people. Put it on a website and allow each and every single person in this country to have access to the information. There's no need for any groups.
But George, think about this from everybody else's standpoint, right? Okay, let's say like Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. There's already been controversy in can we actually trust the government? Next thing you know, they released the same thing that they gave Scott with all the redacted stuff. It's going to be way worse on them. Then 2 weeks they go dark. Then they hand it off to everybody, and they're like, okay, here, and then like, oh yeah, by the way, we're going to also upload it too. It works a different way in a different dynamic. And like you said, yesterday, Pam found out that she didn't have everything. She thought she had everything. So now it looks even better on them. Realistically, it's probably, it doesn't look bad on Pam or Kash. It looks bad on all the reporters now. Now they're like, now you see why we do it this way. Because look what happened. You guys can't handle simple instructions. It's just that simple.
I think we don't know for a fact if so I'm getting messages and people are tagging me saying that the girl who went on a space and read it went back into the White House and got permission to read it off after she left, and they're claiming that she did have permission. So maybe once the White House decided not to do a Pam Bondi presser, maybe there was an alteration in the instructions. Go ahead, Scott.
I think the ultimate message here is everyone is saying, release the list, release the list. I get it. But again, I would just instruct everyone, and I'm going to post the letter that we were given today on my social, and I know it's already out there. But the fact is, this is not the cumulative, this is not the full. The greater story here is that the FBI field office in New York was in possession of documents that it did not turn over to AG Pam Bondi. That is the ultimate story. They were sitting on information that was not given, and what we received is not the cumulative. And so therefore, this says by 8 p.m., by 8 a.m. tomorrow, the FBI will deliver the full and complete Epstein files to my office. Period. As a story. We're going to have to wait until tomorrow to receive more documents, if they release them tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully so. And I want to see some arrests for the insurrectionists within the FBI and the DOJ who are deleting or withholding any evidence, or at the very least,
it's 100% obstruction of justice. It is.
At the very least, it's obstruction of justice. And I don't want to see strongly worded letters. I want to see criminal charges. I want to see perp walks. I want to see accountability, because that's exactly what we're witnessing here. Go ahead, Jess, and then Tom.
Look, I would always want to be careful in most respects when it comes to information, especially information that might hurt someone. I'm very careful, but I have to be honest. I totally agree with George. This should have just been released. And the next time, I hope they just release it. Here's the unfortunate reality, guys. People get doxxed all the time. Data Republican just got doxxed. Okay. And
by the way, I'm
J6ers
having a space with her tonight. It's going to be massive. Data Republican. We're going to talk about Epstein. That's at 8 p.m. That's why I'm closing this one, because I have to drive my kid for 2 hours. But anyways, continue.
Well, no, that's great. And like, I looked up the Idaho code on that and posted that, and that tweet kind of went viral. And the fact of the matter is that Data Republican got doxxed. She didn't ask for that. Neither did the J6ers ask to be in solo confinement for years without their habeas corpus rights. We have to understand that our government has been against us for a long time, guys. And the deep state agencies are real. Cash wrote about it in Government Gangsters. Great book. Go read it. He's got a great audiobook. He reads the book. But if you want to understand why we need full disclosure, yes, it's unfortunate that there's going to be some people that maybe their names are there and they're innocent. I think there should always be a statement that, hey, innocent until proven guilty. But you know what? We need all the files, the JFK files, the MLK files, the RFK senior files, and we need all the Epstein files. And our government needs to stop playing games with us like we're not adult enough to understand what's going on. Our government has used those excuses for years to lie about Iraq, to lie about Vietnam, to lie about everything going back almost to the founding of the republic. These government elites have done this to us, and they've destroyed the Constitution. We need to demand full transparency, put the files on a server, and give them to the people, and we voted for that.
Thank you for that. I agree, Jess. Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the way I interpret all of this is this was a big, thank you to the people that helped the Trump campaign get there. Everybody that I see, I just saw Chad Prather post. I see a lot of good, positive social media influencers. I think it was a good crowd that was brought together today, and they had no idea what they were going there for, from what I understand. But they got an amazing parting gift, and I think all these people deserve a round of applause, and hat tip to them. And it's really it's a great gesture by the administration. They're being included in the transparency. I don't see how this is any kind of bad situation at the end of the day. I think it's a lot better than NBC, ABC, CBS getting this information and then us having to beg and plead for it and wait and all this other garbage. So I'm actually perfectly okay with this. What I think is really funny though is the House Judiciary Committee just posted their link. They're like, here's the link to all the information. And of course, you know what it is. It's the link.
Yeah,
to
it
the
was a
Rick,
troll. It was
Rick
actually
Astley
pretty
video.
aggravating. It was very aggravating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyhow, but kudos to Scott and everyone else that was there. If you were invited to the White House today, it's because you're awesome and you're doing something right. And JD Vance thinks very highly of you. And so, round of applause to all those that were lucky enough to be invited. Good job. That's the way I look at it.
Thanks for that, Tom. Yeah, I just want to say again, if I were one of you guys who had free time, because I would keep the space going, but I have to travel for the next 2 hours.
Well, hey, what do you mean one of you guys are free? We're busy too, bro. We got things to do.
Well, I'm just saying I have to drive my kid for the next 2 hours, so otherwise I'd keep hosting. But I tell you what, if one of you guys want to start up a follow-up space and keep it going, I will join and bring my audience to your space. Whoever wants to do that, I will gladly support you. I am going to do a quick subscriber-only space immediately after this one. So if you want to support the work that I'm doing, the best way to do that is by subscribing. And, man, shout out to you, Scott. Great job, sir. First of all, commendation for going to the White House, getting some of the accolades. I still think you deserve the Medal of Freedom. I heard there's a petition out there for that, and hopefully we see that because you did help win the freedom of the country, as well as your integrity. We've seen it throughout this space where you have withheld naming off a bunch of people based on your integrity without further instructions. So I think that's a way that sets an example of how we as citizen journalists should all behave going forward. If we're going to replace the legacy media, we have to do so in a responsible manner. And we saw exactly how that's supposed to be laid out today. So kudos to you, sir. Make sure you guys are all following all of these speakers up on stage. They're all legends in their own right. And I've come to care a lot about all of them over the last 2 years as I've gotten to know you guys. So you guys have a very blessed evening, and I'll see you tonight during the space of 69 minutes with Data Republican when we get into how she's using coding to see what's really going on with the Epstein case. Have a blessed night, everybody. See you in a minute.
Peace.